Okay, our next topic is going to be a magnitude of a vector with horizontal and vertical components. And guys, basically this is just a version of the Pythagorean theorem. So our next few examples, let me get to them. Problems 16, 17, 18, and 19 are all about finding the magnitude. So for 16, it says find the magnitude of vector v. That's what that means. Then they give you vector v is 3i minus 3j. Well, let me draw it for you just so you can see what it looks like, so you can see how this works. So if I have a 3i minus j vector, that means it's going 3 units in the x direction and minus 1 unit in the y direction. So this is the vector they're talking about, v here. Can't you see how if you're trying to figure out the magnitude of that vector, you're really just going to use Pythagorean theorem. So it's 3 squared plus 1 squared equals c squared right here. So they just take it a step further and say, well, really the magnitude of v is the square root of 3 squared plus 1 squared. Notice how I did not put a -1 here. You can, but people were making so many mistakes last year with a -1 squared, typing it in the calculator, where it would be 3 squared minus 1. This will never, ever in the triangle be negative. So unless you're very good about using parentheses around the -1, just leave it as 1 squared, because to find the magnitude here of our hypotenuse, it doesn't really matter that it's going in the negative direction. So you'll probably notice when I'm doing it with all of them, I rarely put the negative sign in there to square it and find the magnitude. So we do, our magnitude of v is 3 squared plus 1 squared. So we have 9 plus 1. Your magnitude of v is just going to be the square root of 10. You can't simplify that any further. So our next section, it says adding and subtracting vectors and finding magnitude. So now we're going to combine a few things. So we're going to first add the coefficients for I together and add our coefficients for j together. It's like two different variables, right? You can't combine i's and j's. So for instance, if we're going to find the quantity if v equals 4i minus 8j and w equals negative 3i plus 2j, they want us to find 3v plus 4w. So the first thing I'm going to do is find 3v. Well, 3v just means I multiply my 4 times a 3 and get 12, my 8 times a 3 and get a negative 24. Then I find 4w. So I multiply everything by 4. 3 times 4 is 12. 2 times 4 is 8. And then I add them together. So my i's, I have a 12i minus a 12i, so I get 0i. Negative 24j plus an 8j, so a negative 16j. So my 3v plus 4w just turns out to be 16j in this case. Okay, we're going to find the magnitude of two vectors we're going to find the magnitude of one of them after we subtract them, and then we're going to find the magnitude of two vectors and then subtract them. I'll show you the difference of those in just a second.